What if I told you the difference between someone who builds wealth and someone who stays broke forever isn't about income, intelligence, or inheritance? There's a specific dollar amount that rewires your entire brain, and 97% of people will never reach it. That number is $20,000, and what happens when you hit it is nothing short of bizarre. I'm Praku, and I've been obsessed with one question for the past decade. Why do some people escape financial anxiety while others with identical salaries stay trapped? The answer isn't what the personal finance industry tells you. It's not about budgeting apps, side hustles, or cutting out lattes. There's a neurological tripwire at $20,000 that fundamentally alters how your brain processes risk, opportunity, and fear. Hit that subscribe button because by the end of this video, you'll understand why your current financial strategy is probably backwards and what to do about it starting today. Let me paint a picture. You wake up, check your bank account, and feel that familiar knot in your stomach. $642. Not terrible, but not comfortable. Your car makes a weird noise, and instead of getting it checked, you turn up the radio and pray it goes away. Your friend invites you to dinner, and you spend 15 minutes calculating whether you can afford it without admitting you're broke. You take every shift your boss offers, even the ones that wreck your weekends, because saying no feels dangerous. This is what I call the scarcity spiral. Your lack of money creates anxiety. That anxiety forces you into short-term thinking. Short-term thinking prevents wealth building. And the cycle repeats month after month, year after year. Here's what nobody tells you. This isn't a character flaw. This is neuroscience. When your bank account is low, your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, is running the show. It's screaming at you about survival. And when survival is on the line, your prefrontal cortex, the part that plans for the future, gets overridden. You're literally biologically incapable of thinking about wealth when you're worried about rent. So why $20,000 specifically? Because research shows this is roughly where 3 to 6 months of expenses lands for most people. And 3 to 6 months is the exact buffer your nervous system needs to calm down and stop treating every day like a crisis. When you have $20,000 sitting in your account, something incredible happens in your brain chemistry. Your cortisol levels, the stress hormone, drop. Your decision-making shifts from the primitive limbic system to the rational neocortex. You stop operating like a cornered animal and start operating like a chess player. But here's the part that sounds like science fiction. This shift isn't gradual, it's binary. One day you're anxious about money, the next day, with that same $20,000 saved, you're calm. Researchers call this phenomenon the financial set point, and it's as real as your body's temperature regulation. Your brain has a specific number where it decides you're safe, and for most humans, that number hovers around $20,000. Below it, you're in danger mode. Above it, you're in opportunity mode. The entire trajectory of your financial life changes at this invisible line. Now, let's talk about why this matters for wealth building, because this is where math becomes magic. Imagine you're saving $1,000 monthly and investing it at 8% annual returns. That first $20,000, it takes you roughly 19 months of grinding, sacrificing, saying no to things you want. 19 brutal months. But your second $20,000 only takes about 17 months. Wait, what? Same contributions, same effort, but 2 months faster? Here's the conspiracy that rich people don't advertise. Money makes money exponentially, not linearly. That first $20,000 is now your silent business partner, generating returns while you sleep, eat, and binge-watch shows. By your third $20,000, you're down to 15 months. Your fourth, 13 months. Once you hit $400,000 in your portfolio, that same $20,000 that initially took 19 months, it now materializes every 5 months automatically. This is compound interest, but here's why it matters more than the math suggests. Once you see your money working this hard for you, something psychological shifts. You stop thinking of your salary as your only income source. You start thinking like an investor. Every dollar becomes a soldier you can deploy. And suddenly, trading your time for money feels less like your only option and more like one strategy among many. But the real transformation at $20,000 isn't financial, it's neurological. You've literally trained your brain to override its most primitive instincts. Think about what it took to save that money. You saw something you wanted, and you didn't buy it, hundreds of times. You felt the dopamine pull of instant gratification, and you resisted it, hundreds of times. You delayed pleasure for future benefit, over and over, until it became your default operating system. Neuroscientists have a name for this. You've strengthened your prefrontal cortex and weakened your impulsive responses. You've essentially given yourself a brain upgrade. And here's the kicker. This upgrade applies to everything, not just money. The discipline required to save $20,000 translates to career advancement, relationship management, health goals, everything that requires trading short-term pleasure for long-term gain. This is why people who reach $20,000 saved rarely go back to zero. It's not just that they have money, it's that they've become a different person, someone who makes different choices, someone who thinks differently about trade-offs. You've crossed a mental threshold that's almost impossible to uncross. Here's something weird that happens once you hit $20,000. Opportunities start appearing everywhere. Not because the universe rewards savers, but because your perception changes. When you're broke, every financial decision is binary. Can I afford this or not? When you have $20,000 saved, every decision becomes strategic. What's the return on this investment? Your buddy mentions he's flipping furniture on weekends and making an extra $2,000 monthly. Before $20,000, you think, that sounds nice, and forget about it. After $20,000, you think, I could fund inventory with $5,000 and test this model. Your company offers a certification program that costs $3,000 but could lead to a promotion. Before, that's an impossible expense. After, it's a calculated bet on yourself. The same opportunities existed before, but your brain filtered them out because you couldn't act on them anyway. With $20,000 in the bank, your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that determines what information gets through, completely recalibrates. You're scanning for growth instead of scanning for threats. This attentional shift alone can transform your income trajectory. And here's what's wild. You start taking smarter risks, not reckless gambles, but calculated moves that broke you couldn't even consider. You can afford to leave a toxic job and find something better. You can negotiate harder because you're not desperate. You can invest in skills, tools, or relationships that might not pay off immediately, but compound over time. Let's talk about what $20,000 does to your career, because this is where things get fascinating. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're negotiating from weakness. Your boss knows it. Your colleagues sense it. You take on extra work you don't want because you're afraid. You don't ask for raises because the possibility of losing your job terrifies you. You're essentially a hostage, and everyone can smell the desperation. $20,000 gives you what poker players call walking away money. You don't have to use it, just having it changes everything. You walk into salary negotiations differently. You decline unreasonable requests without panic. You explore new positions without fear. This confidence isn't fake or manufactured, it's real because you have actual options. Studies on negotiation show that your best alternative shapes your outcomes more than your skills. The person who can walk away gets better deals, always. With $20,000 saved, you're that person. And the bizarre part? Most of the time you won't walk away, you won't quit, you won't burn bridges. But knowing you could transforms your entire workplace dynamic. You become bolder, more assertive, more willing to advocate for yourself. And organizations reward that behavior with better assignments, more responsibility, and yes, more money. Here's where most people sabotage themselves, and I need you to listen carefully because this mistake is everywhere. They hit 20,000 and immediately think, I deserve a reward. They buy a new car, take an expensive trip, or use it for a house down payment they can't really afford. Don't do this. That 20,000 isn't a prize, it's a weapon. Let me show you the math that'll either excite you or devastate you. The average person spends around $700 monthly on car-related expenses over their lifetime. Payments, insurance, gas, maintenance. Over 40 years, that's $336,000. Meanwhile, that same person claims they can't save for retirement. If you invested that $700 monthly at 8% returns instead, you'd have over $2 million. The car isn't making you wealthy, it's making you poor while feeling rich. This is what I call the stupid tax, paying for the appearance of success instead of building actual wealth. And cars are just one example. The bigger apartment, the designer clothes, the fancy restaurants, they all feel like rewards for your hard work, but they're actually stealing your future freedom. $20,000 saved gives you the perspective to see these trade-offs clearly. That $30,000 car isn't just $30,000, it's $200,000 that car would become in your investment account over 20 years. Suddenly, driving a reliable used vehicle isn't a sacrifice, it's an intelligent, strategic choice, funding your escape from financial anxiety. Look, $20,000 won't make you rich tomorrow, but it will rewire your brain, unlock opportunities you're currently blind to, and give you the psychological foundation everything else builds on. This is the difference between people who eventually build wealth and people who spend their entire lives stressed about money. Most people never get here because they don't believe it's possible. They see 19 months of consistent saving as impossible, so they never start. But here's the truth. Those 19 months are passing whether you're saving or not. The only question is whether future you will thank present you for making different choices. Start building that foundation today, because the person you'll become at 20,000 saved is someone you need to meet. Trust me on this.